Hello there, team. In this session, what I want to talk about is why most people use an incomplete goal setting system and how you can change that. Because if you're using an incomplete goal setting system, you're going to likely have had a very poor relationship with goal setting. You've perhaps created goals that have stressed you out, overwhelmed you, led to decision fatigue, or the goals that you've set have actually not remedied that in your life. Like the whole point of setting a goal is that it makes your life easier. One of the biggest questions that I commonly see answered as a negative on my scorecard is I believe a 10x goal will make my life more simple. And a lot of people disagree with that. They don't see setting big goals as something that will help their life. They see it as something that will make their life more complicated. It will give them more decisions or more pathways than the ones they already have, which means that there is like this reservation, this fear that setting a big goal is actually going to cause them more stress. Probably at a time where they're feeling overwhelmed, stretched thin, burnt out, like they're having to make so many decisions and they don't want to make any more. And then the thought of then adding a goal on top of that, it just seems so overwhelming. So in this session, what I want to help you do is see a goal setting system when it's done properly and in its entirety will actually remedy some of the struggles and strains that you're having in leadership right now. Because so many leaders come into my practice, they feel stretched. They feel stretched thin. I mean, they feel really like they are trying to be so many things to so many people. They're making all the decisions. They have perhaps tried delegating, but they haven't got the people or the systems in their business to allow them to get things off their plate and trust that they're going to be done as well as they could be. And they feel trapped. And then it's just even an overwhelming thought thinking, what? And I want to stretch myself even further. I want to have a 10x goal. How do we actually implement this? So what I'm going to walk you through is a very simple system I use with clients that you can plug into your business, into your thinking, into Q2 of 2025, or whenever you're listening to this podcast, and use to amplify your goal setting process. Now, I actually look back across my years of helping people set goals and realized that if I would have known this then, I would have had way more successes in my past. Now, if I look back across, especially body transformation, one of the things that I often did, I did help people set impossible goals. I always talked about these ideas of big goals are the things that are going to transform your life. But the other two parts, I don't feel, or I can't remember putting as much weight to as I now understand is important. And as I go through this session, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through first of all, the 10X goal, the frame. And I'm going to give you why if that process is incomplete and you haven't put enough focus on it, it will actually inhibit you. It will actually lead to you feeling more overwhelmed. Then I'm going to walk you through the focus, what the focal point, the leverage, how you actually need a 10X strategy to be born from that 10X goal. And we're going to finish off by looking at raising your standards, a 10X floor raise, like really looking to exponentially let go of the things that are holding you back. And when you do these three steps in their entirety, what happens is your life actually gets easier. And the only way that I can attest to this is the experiences I've had, not just in my own life, but what's happened over the last 6 months as I've seen clients start to do this in their work, in their practices, in their businesses, and what it's remedied for them, what changes has it created for them. So I think this is going to be one of those podcasts where it's definitely worthwhile having a notebook. It's definitely worthwhile being able to press pause and write stuff down, take action on what you're hearing, or come back to it and listen to it a few times as well. So let's start first and foremost with the most obvious thing in a goal setting process, the goal itself. I believe that if you set a 2x goal, a small incremental goal as your main goal, it is incomplete. It is not a full understanding of the reason why you're setting a goal. Now, the basis of my coaching, you might have heard this before, is what one can be, one must be. a 10x goal forces you to be what you can be. It forces you to remove old systems, processes, thinking, behaviors, habits, relationships, everything that existed in a past version of you. Now, a 10x goal forces you to do things better, unique, or differently. It's there to disrupt the status quo. Now, whenever we make a decision that perpetuates the status quo, we're choosing a comfortable decision. When we make a decision to force and disrupt and change and grow, we're making an uncomfortable decision. And it's in those uncomfortable decisions which we move towards self-actualization and actually psychological safety. And like, honestly, this is the biggest thing. A goal, a 10x goal, is there to disrupt the current pathways. Now, the problem being is that sometimes the things that have got us to where we are right now, the things that have created your success in your life, in your business, the habits, the patterns, the people are or have worked. The problem being is that they won't always continue to work. And here's a little bit of how I see it. You can either choose to disrupt yourself or be disrupted. And the example of this is Blockbuster is a great example of this. Blockbuster Video was offered to buy Netflix in its infancy. It was said like, hey, listen, disrupt your current mechanism of distributing films on VHS and having shops and buy a streaming platform. And they made a safe decision to stay with their 2x goal of trying to grow every quarter and maintain the market leader status. And they were offered a disruptive merger with Netflix, and they declined that. And then what happened is the exponential shift in technology, in streaming platforms, led to them becoming obsolete. They were moved away from being the market leader, not because they had chosen to stay at the top, but they'd chosen to stay safe and not disrupt their current systems. That's what happens when we don't choose to grow. If we try and there's a really great distinction in coaching. We play to win, then we play not to lose. But what we want to do is we want to think of a 10x goal that's going to drastically disrupt our current systems and processes in order for us to exponentially grow. Now, how does that look like for you listening in? How would you actually set a 10x goal that actually looks like that? Well, my example personally was last year. I looked at how I performed. I was happy that I'd grown a business from nothing. I went from being a part of a team to be a solo entrepreneur. And the goal was it was a small goal to get going. That was kind of like I was quite a reactive state. I needed to build a network of people. I needed to start from scratch. And I looked at actually how I performed. I was like, hang on a second, I actually could do that in a month. And so in January this year, my 10x goal was to create last year's revenue, the complete revenue I generated last year in 1 month. Was that a stretch goal? Yes. Had I achieved that amount of revenue in 1 month before? No, not individually. And then equally, was it a goal that was going to force me to do things differently? Yes. I couldn't have used the same price points. I couldn't have used the same products. I couldn't have even used the same mechanisms for selling the way I did because they weren't working. So it drastically shifted the way that I created my strategy. So I love that. Do X year's revenue in a month or in a quarter. That's a really good 10x goal because it forces you to think differently. But what's also quite great about that goal is that if you've achieved something over a year, you've still achieved that thing. It means you know in your soul that it's possible. So then the goal then is to create a constraint for you to do it in a short amount of time. So the only thing there is you need to change the levers by which you created it. A really great goal was like the best shape of my life for a certain birthday. That's an exponential goal. That's a 10x goal because what happens is it forces you to think differently. It forces you to behave differently. Like my goal for when I turned 30 was be in the best shape of my life as I turned 30. That was a really good 10x goal for me. And the final one, it could be like a relationship goal, is look at the amount of time that you spent phone away, switched off, unplugged with your family last year. Now, what would it do for your family life, for your relationships, for your parenting, if you 10x that? And for a lot of people, they say, right, do you know what? Actually, do you know what? I had 1 or 2 weeks holiday with the family last year. That was 14 days. What happens in the next year if I could create a way of having 100 days of quality family time with my family? What would that do? And again, that's a 10x. It forces you to think differently. It forces you to be differently. And that's how exponential goals work. It forces you to think and behave differently. But if you were to say, well, do you know what? I had 14 days of good quality vacation this year with family. I want to do 30 days. It doesn't really force that much difference. Like, okay, do you know what? I'll put my phone away during my vacation time. Whereas the 100 days thinks, well, actually, do you know what? In my current role, my current job, I've got to leave my job to be able to achieve that goal. I've got to hire someone else in my business to achieve that goal. Again, that 10x forces that transformation, and that's what we're looking for. And that's the only way that goal will then make your life easier. You want to keep getting the goal bigger until it forces you to think, well, actually, do you know what? I can't do this on my own. I can't continue to do this. I've got to outsource this. And what we're doing is we're removing things off your plate in order for you to be more effective. You can't moor yourself to a 10x goal. You can't just do more, whereas a 2x goal you can. So what happens is it really forces you to iterate and actually eradicate processes, people, relationships that really don't fit as well. We'll talk more about that when we get to the raising the floor, because that's the most important part. That's what I got the most value from it anyway. When you've got a really clear 10x goal, that then allows you to create a world-class strategy. If you think about this, you can't create a world-class strategy from a subpar kind of pub class goal. And what I mean by this is that when you create a really big goal that's probably bigger than you've ever thought before, higher level, it's got more of an impact. Say, for example, instead of working with 10 people, you're working with 100 people, or say, for example, you're working in one country, you're working in 10 countries. It's going to force you to think more effectively and be better with your thinking around that goal. And what I think I've seen people struggle with in the past is that when they have created their 10x goal, they actually have, or if they haven't used the 10x goal, there's too many pathways to that goal. Now, this is how goal setting actually overwhelms people. When your goal isn't big enough, there are multiple ways to get there. Now, a great example for this is Elon Musk. For Elon Musk to get to Mars, I think that he's had to lobby government, he's had to do things differently. Whether you like him or not is irrelevant. You can see that he's got this absolutely ginormous 10x goal, get to Mars. But you can see it's eliminated the ways that he can get there. He needs the US government on his side in order to achieve that. So he's probably doing things that you probably never would have seen him do 5 years ago. And it's the same in your business. It's the same in your life. As you create a world-class strategy, it's actually going to remove some of the options that you might never have thought of in the past. My own personal example of this, I built my fitness business on this premise that I and my team were incredible at one-on-one consultations. I spent actually probably years teaching my team how to be what I would say world-class consultants, how to really understand where the struggles and pains and challenges of a client were, understand exactly where they wanted to get to, and create a really great bridge and see if our product or service was a really good fit for that person. It was a very intimate process. And I really did pride myself on the fact that that's the way that we did things until we didn't do them like that anymore. I realized that albeit that was a very intimate strategy, it wasn't an effective strategy for the goals that I had. And also it cost us a lot in terms of time, energy, and sometimes it was one of the biggest sucks on our time, because if we had a really good marketing campaign, we would then be sucked up into sales activities, which then meant we weren't as effective as in delivery. So then the delivery would suffer, people would leave, so we need to market more, we need to sell more, and it was like each part of the business would suffer because the process before it was being sucked up with time. So what I realized is that we had to sell one to many. We had to change what we prided ourselves on being or doing in order to get the results that we wanted to get. So instead of spending 5 hours a day delivering sales sessions, I could deliver one sales session and then spend 4 hours working with clients. So what happened? Our sales actually increased, and our time with delivery increased, so our retention got better. That strategy came from the goal. Instead of trying to make 4,000 in sales per month extra, we were trying to make 40,000. And that 10x led to an exponential shift in the gym. The culture, the trainers were more effective, they were happier, they had more time, we became better leveraged, and the results got better as well. But anyway, that's a different podcast. But what I'm trying to share that with you is like, it was only by increasing the goal that we allowed ourselves to increase and change the strategy, a strategy that we'd held on to for years. And sometimes this is what happens, is that, and this is a big part of what you'll notice as you start to build a 10x strategy, is that the things that got you to where you are may be the things that you let go of. And it's hard because they worked. So what are some of the things that you'll notice when you get a 10x strategy? You'll start to let go of complexity. Complexity is the enemy of growth. And I noticed this, my default or clients' defaults, especially in the past, and I'm going to actually call this out a little bit, is that some people will use complexity as an out. That is why the strategy won't work for them. And what I mean by this is that my system, my process for helping people lose weight in a body transformation journey was very simple. Eat more protein, drink more water, make sure you're on the right amount of calories, and move 2 to 3 times a week. It was simple. But what happened was people that would come and work with me, they would try and make this more complicated. How many grams of creatine do I need? Do I need to be having this many grams of net carbs? And like, what the net carbs count in your mind? They'd ask so many questions, and I could hear them trying to complexify a very simple process. Eat good quality meat and fish and eggs to get your right amount of protein. Eat the right amount of carbohydrates. Let's kind of keep the fats low. Put them all in your macro calculator. It was by nature very simple. And I noticed that when people started to complexify it, it was them doing it from a place of fear. And what I noticed was, as I made the process more simple, we got better results. Whereas previous to that, what I actually believed is people needed almost like a PhD level education in nutrition in order to lose weight. I would talk about all these types of micronutrients, all these sort of processes, all these supplements that needed to take. And because the process of losing weight was complex, we had to deliver that one-to-one. So the clients were mystified and overwhelmed, but we were also heavily, we had to deliver this one-to-one. It was very, very complex. So we had to walk people through it step by step. As soon as I simplified my system, it allowed me to make a very, very nice, it was actually quite a nice little course, like a sequential course, where people were able to self-educate, but our results improved. And it was by our results improving which our business improved, because we're getting more testimonials, people were getting more results, they were telling their friends more. And that is why it's so important to get a simple system. A simple system is exactly what will help you 10x. And that's what one of the things that I noticed, and this is when I worked with Ben Hardy, is that what you want to keep doing is raising the goal, make it more like the goal bigger and bigger until the complexity just won't stand up. I can't do this. It can't be this complex if I want to hit those numbers. So you're using your 10x goal as a tool. And that's actually what the goal is for in the first place. So that's the focus. So when we've got the goal, we get the focus on point, what will happen is you've got a system then to build towards your goal. But this is the final point where I think that in the past, I've gone wrong, and I've seen many people go wrong as well, is that they haven't put the same weighting on raising the floor and letting go of old patterns, systems, habits, people, process as is necessary. It's probably the thing that I've got most value from in my own life over the past, say, 6 months. And this is what I would call an aggressive raising of the floor. And the word aggressive, and I think this is important we talk about this. Aggressive raising of the floor. What does that mean? Well, first of all, it means raising your standards. It's filtering what you say yes and no to. It's starting to say no to things that you previously would have said yes to. For one of my clients, the biggest thing that he's trying to achieve this year is to be the best in the world. And to be the best in the world, he's also got to let go of business that he would previously have said yes to. And it's good business. It's multi-six-figure business. But now his goal is so big that it's dropped below his floor. And it feels uncomfortable. And one of the things that you've got to ask yourself and sometimes say to yourself is, it's better to be accepted at my new, better to be rejected at my new standard than be accepted at my old one. So it's better to be rejected at my new standard than be accepted at my old one. This is when you go to new business, you go to new customers, you go to clients, and you pitch for business and you get that rejection, instead of just holding on to comfortable current pricing systems, levels of performance. And that hit hard for me. A really big part of raising your floor is disappointment. And it was hard for me to hear that. I was like, actually, yeah, do you know what the biggest parts of my personal 10X is? When I've made a 10X or shifted in my life, a big part of what I've done is I've had to disappoint people. I've had to let go of old commitments, which got me to where I was today. And I can look back and I remember when I was leaving Fast Way to Fitness as owning the business. I wanted to move to Dubai. I wanted to have a different lifestyle. I wanted to radically change my life, spend way more time with my kids. And I remember starting to share this vision I had for my life and what was changing. And there was the clients who I was currently serving or even leading in the gym, they didn't like that. They loved the fact that I was, going for bold and big dreams. They respected that, but they didn't like the fact that I was leaving the gym floor. They didn't like that I wouldn't be there anymore. And past me would have probably held back on that. I think I definitely did that in a big part of the final years of me being a trainer, is I hung on to activities, running sessions, not giving the trainers that I was working with some more responsibilities, because I felt I was letting people down. I felt that by them doing it, it was a signal that I wasn't as involved as much in the business, and all these sort of stories I was telling myself. And I remember making that decision. It disappointed a lot of people. And I'm okay with that, because that was feedback that I was moving to a different level of my career. Like it's delusional. It's a thing that I'm going to be happy staying in the same position, doing the same things for the next 10 years. So it was really, really quite an interesting part of my own life. But it's the same I see in my clients. A big part of what we get to is what I call the big no. It's like this one thing that you've got to let go of and leave in your past. It can't come past this point in your life. It's like, nope, this does not fit in my future. And what does that look like? Well, for me, it was selling the gym. I sold the majority share in the gym. I still had shares. It still thought about the gym a lot. I still thought about my team or the team I'd left behind. I still thought about the franchise agreement that we had bought into. I thought about so much of it. And I realized that it was bandwidth that I just didn't need. It wasn't going to help me create my goals and my dreams for this phase of my life. So I let go of it. I sold my gym completely in December of 2024. And so what did that give me? It gave me way more space. It gave me way more bandwidth, and it gave me some money as well. So what I think that this will do for you when you have this goal, this 3-part goal setting system, is that you'll start to see setting bigger goals as a tool for actually making your life better, for creating constraints that improve your life. And if you've got an inexperienced coach or someone who doesn't understand this, you'll just end up feeling more and more overwhelmed. Or if you do it yourself, you won't have the people in your corner to back you up when you need to make those decisions. Like, for example, letting go of some of these things. If I was working with Ben Hardy at the time, if I didn't have him in my corner, if I didn't have my other coaches in my corner, if I didn't have those people behind me, knowing that I was making these commitments to change, would I have made those decisions? I probably would have, but I think it makes them easier, faster, and more certain. So hopefully that's helped you a lot. They're three very, very powerful steps that you can plug into your goal setting system for Q2. Now, there are some comments in the podcast notes for you if you want help doing this in Q2 of 2025. So when this podcast goes live, we are a week away from the incubator where I'm going to help guys set goals for Q2. And if you're a lady and you want to do this with me, just reach out to me, because I do this with ladies one-on-one as well. But here's the thing. Having these 3 frames in place for your Q2 goals will exponentially shift not just your results, but the quality of your life, your thinking, and your presence. So hopefully this has helped you. Thank you so much for listening, and see you on the next podcast. Go and check out the comments if you feel that this would help you in Q2 of this year. Take care.